Hey, good morning, everyone. TractorMan44 here. You know, sometimes you get dealt a little bit of a surprise during the day. I had a little problem with my old Ford, this 085 Ford. It's got a 460 in it, you know, and I had to winch a sister-in-law's car out of the mud, I think just yesterday. And of course, I used the winch in the back of the bed that I installed here, I don't know, a couple months ago or so. And on the way home, I noticed that my alternator was only putting out about 10.5 volts, or my voltmeter on the dash when I put in a remote dash pod so that I could actually see the voltage in the system was only reading about 10.5 volts or something, and the ammeter was showing just a slight discharge. The Ford factory ammeter was showing just a slight discharge. And so well, that's a good thing for today. I need to come out here and do some troubleshooting. So I was all set and everything, to do a little bit of a troubleshooting on the alternator, see what's going on with it, and kind of provide you guys with what I would find out or what little bit I know about them. And I did come up with a bit of a surprise. But I don't have to go through all that test, and I'll tell you that here in just a few minutes. Why not? And I don't know if all of them are the same, but I think it is on this 85 and this series of vehicles from that general era. The first thing that you want to do, of course, is take your digital voltometer, which is an accurate meter, hopefully anyway, and put it across the terminal of your battery in a non-running condition and see what that static voltage is. Static voltage means it's not receiving any voltage from the alternator that would cause it to be higher than what it would be whenever it's laying there unpowered or in an uncharged state or in a state of not being charged. Let's put it that way. 12.6 volts DC is the indicator of a fully charged battery. If you have something less than that, of course, your battery's either going bad, you've got a charging system issue, or whatever. So that's whenever you break out the meter once again to do the basic testing of your alternator. So what you'll do then is go ahead and start your vehicle and check the battery voltage while the alternator is running and being energized, and that should jump from that 12.6 volts to somewhere a minimum of 13.5 up to like 14.5 volts. Now, your digitals are supposed to be a little bit accurate, or they definitely are more accurate than an analog meter. So it should be at the very minimum 13.5 volts, and at the maximum 14.5. You don't want it to find 15.5 volts or whatever, because you're going to boil your battery dry. That's not good. So once you determine that your alternator has output and increasing the signal to the battery to indicate that it's being charged, well, then you can pretty much rest assured that you've got the issue resolved, or you didn't really have an issue other than a slipping belt or something like that. But if you find you have an erratic voltage, or you don't have that required 13.5 volts minimum while it's running, you want to go ahead and shut it off and get in there and find the actual mounting bracket on the alternator to the frame of or to the block of the engine, because most of these things will ground through that actual connection right there. So if you have anything that'll inhibit the flow of electricity or electron, like rust or something like that, or corrosion, you need to clean all that off and then rebolt it and everything. Make sure that you have that good contact there so that it'll transfer that signal. Bad grounds cause all kinds of things. Like if you have brown headlights at nighttime, you notice that it's kind of yellow and dim and everything. Chances are you're missing one of the multiple ground wires, or you have bad connection on one or more of your ground wires from the block of the engine to the frame of the vehicle, and that'll almost take care of that every time. Then most of these old Fords like this, back in this era, this is an 85 Ford, I think I said that earlier, most of the alternators will have an identifiable B plus or B positive terminal on the alternator, and what that'll do is that's a wire that actually goes right back to the positive terminal on the battery, and that supplies the excitation to energize the alternator. And it may also, and I'm not totally sure about this, but it may also be the wire that actually maintains the battery. But at any rate, you find the identifiable B plus wire and take your digital voltometer and you put one of the leads on that B plus terminal on the alternator and bring it back to the positive terminal on the battery. And if you have more than 0.05 volts DC reading across that, that means there's some issue with that particular wire. It's reading a faulty resistance, so to speak, or that voltage is indicating a faulty resistance in that wire, and that wire probably needs to be changed, or the connections on both ends need to be cleaned. Remember that ground connection that you cleaned and everything on the mounting bolt on the alternator. You can go ahead and put your digital voltometer from that ground all the way over to the negative post on your battery, and that too should read 0.05 volts or less, preferably less than 0.05 volts. And that indicates that's good if that's the case. Now, if all that tests good, and it's time to put a load test on it. So go ahead and start your vehicle, and you can check your output of the alternators by seeing the increase in voltage going across your to your battery terminals. And then go ahead and put a load test on it by turning on everything electric. Put your blower motor on high speed. If it has air conditioning, turn on your air conditioning. If it has high and low beam lights, it has clearance lights. Turn every imaginable accessory on that you can turn on. Even push in the cigarette lighter if it's got a cigarette lighter. If you've got an amplifier, turn it to max. However it is you do that. But anyway, and then come back out and check the voltage on the battery. And with the engine running, you should never have at full load or full load being consumed on the vehicle, you should never be delivering less than 13.5 volts. Anything less than that's going to indicate the beginning of an issue with the alternator output, or maybe the alternator output itself is defective. Now, the point of the story is to bring you guys around to the good news. The good news is I got everything all set up. I got my test lights here. I got my DVOM. I have two different digital voltometers just so I can check them against one another. And one thing that needs to be said is at the very top of the list, you need to check your belt, because I had everything ready and I thought, well, I think I'm going to lay down, and roll underneath it real quick on the creeper, because I got too much stuff in here right now to get it up on the hoist. I got to clear some stuff out before winter. But anyway, go ahead and check your belt. Guess what? I popped my belt, lost my belt, broke it, whatever, on the way home in the pouring down rain from my sister-in-law's yesterday after pulling her car out from the mud hole. So, long story short, always go for the simple things first. And I intentionally left the check the belt to the very end of it to indicate the things that you have to go through in order to check your alternator. And in this particular case, it's unnecessary. And I apologize if I stuttered a little bit, but that's pretty basically what you can do with these old Fords. Now, this is kind of like almost kind of like a Delco alternator. They're very similar. They do exactly the same thing. It's just that they do them just a little bit differently, by different connections, I guess, so to speak. So there you can see those shiny pulleys down at the bottom is the alternator pulleys. Of course, this is my fan clutch. Yeah, it's got a little bit of mud and stuff in it because kind of run home on the highway in kind of the rain and a little bit of sludge and everything, coming off my truck. And then down there's the harmonic balancer. So it's time for me to get a replacement belt, man, and we'll be good to go. At any rate, all's well that ends well, and I'm kind of tickled to death that I'll be probably taking the missus grocery shopping after a while. We'll stop by O'Reilly's and pick me up a belt for this thing, and it should be good to go. So you know what? That's all I got for this one here, and this is Tractor Man 44, and I am out of here, guys.